Well, that we have this culture of complete transparency, right? I mean, that's
No, it's a culture of materialism. It's not a culture of transparency. It's a culture of fitting in, and that's what society is basically dictating as our next step as a society.
so. There's a process
It's a
of
forced transparency.
okay, so a false one. So
Forced.
a forced transparency.
Yes.
So we're all supposed to be transparent to IRS, to your professors, to your bursar, to all of these things. Yet that real estate scammed something like 15 to 20 million Americans, right?
Yeah.
Well, including my brother. My older brother lost his house, and it wasn't very fair. It was predatory loaning, right? And it was contingent on a couple ideas that, the bubble will always expand, how everyone will always need your houses. Yeah, let's measure if you have the jobs for the houses.
Well, that's the American dream, which is false.
It's the American dream because that's supposed to be embedded in our culture. Whoever comes to America to be American say, one day you'll get your house, which means that they're slaves to the roof over their heads. And a bunch of other things that were latent, not manifest. What was, in your opinion, what could have been a transparent indicator that this was going to go south?
Let's see. People that were making minimum wage and being allowed to have loans for houses without putting a standard $10,000 down.
I thought it should be 20.
20%. Well, it should. Yeah, it depends on the house.
Yeah,
but
so if you're living outside of New York,
yeah.
And even New York, you'd have to put down 20 or 30,000, right?
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah, those are old numbers. See, yeah, it's more money. And people that were just like, I have no money, but I have a job at McDonald's. Okay, sign here, you've got your house.
Which was sort of my brother's case. Yeah, it was like, he's been through college, but he's got some developmental issues, Okay. So it's like, but it was the American dream. My family said, have the American dream, have the house. And it just wasn't. It wasn't the number. The simple fifth grade mathematics, right? Anyone think it's all that complicated? Remy.
The housing.
Yeah, like $10,000 for a $140,000 house if you live like upstate. What's an indicator, Remy, on which is facing a couple? I got a lot of brothers and sisters.
Okay.
What part of the corollary to that, visually? This is a visual culture class. What signs can we see that we're being deceived? You have to keep a full-time job for a while, right?
Absolutely. Like years.
For years. Could you ever get divorced?
You.
That would be problematic too.
You could, but it would. Would it make it more expensive for the? Yeah.
You could both lose the house.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
You could both lose the house. I'm not talking about who wins, who gains in a divorce. I'm saying, in an equal society, both couples who decided to mix for whatever psychological reason people mix up. I'm not that cynical, Minju, about love. I love love.
You love the idea.
I love the idea of love. And then this is the manifest. The manifest is you'd have to stay. A student of mine did the figure. You would have to be a double income household of over $100,000, 2 incomes to own a house on Long Island.
Makes sense.
You live there on Long Island?
Yeah.
It's expensive. Who else lives there now? You live there.
It's ridiculously expensive. I mean, I think average taxes alone, property taxes.
Yes.
$8,000 to $12,000. Just in a small house.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine that lives on an acre in a town called Greenlawn with an in-ground pool, and his taxes are $22,000.
Just because he has that pool?
Well, he's on an acre and he's in Greenlawn, but $22,000 for property taxes. Again, that's also school district stuff, fire, police, all that other garbage.
Well, it's the schools are
a lot of money.
And a lot of the, sorry, Mr. Policeman, a lot of the Suffolk County police dudes just ride around in air-conditioned cars collecting over 6 figures.
Yes, they're the highest.
The only reason why I sort of even defend them, because You know, I've had my running for a while, but there's only 2,500 Suffolk County police officers compared to New York City that has 35,000, and New York City's 35,000 police officers. It only takes them a few years to start making six figures. So, oh yeah.
But then they usually move out of the city, right? Out of the trouble zones.
No, they stay in New York for at least 20 years, but salary-wise, these guys aren't doing nothing.
I know. They're roughing kids up at 7-Elevens and stuff like that.
Stop and frisk.
At Stony Brook, which has state troopers,
Yes,
I heard,
they're state.
which you could be busted federally. Open it up, gang. Weigh in. What is the latent visual ingredients that we're talking about? The Apple geniuses. We're talking about the scams, the bubble economy scams. Notably, the one with real estate. These people were deceived. They thought they bought into it. Catherine, what beyond fifth grade math? If everyone around you is saying the only sure thing in this life is property, and you say, no, you got to have a sure job to have sure property, what should have they have done?
If they didn't have a stable job, I mean, it wasn't so much up to the people. I guess it was more so the banks. I mean, this dream that people were chasing, they allowed it. So I think it's not people's fault. Maybe they did something that was unrealistic, but if you're being pushed into it and you're giving all these opportunities that are so much easier than what they are now, why not take it?
I remember a bank loan officer said, he told me this in 2004 or 5, it would take no money down.
No money.
It was that ridiculous because he wanted to make his commission. You know?
Yes. Yes.
So he was like a drug dealer, man. He was saying, okay, you don't need any money down. It starts off with this level mortgage. This doesn't kick in. It was all, like we mentioned before in the book, Lanier talks about as Facebook is selling to the advertisers of the future. This was all to the pyramid schemes. Everyone knows how those operate. To the future. The future.
Wells Fargo was doing the same thing.
I hate Wells Fargo. I hate
Because what did they do? For housing or loans?
Yeah, they were selling their the loans to other people.
Mhm.
People's loans
Yeah.
to private investors.
Well, that was in that movie Inside Job. Very good, a very great movie because they said that even the junk loans became commodities. They were betting and selling on whether it's going to rain. It's like our bad uncles loose in the casino, and that was incredible. I mean, now it's we mentioned, I think it was Tyrell. We said what the Occupy people are trying to say is the last place you cannot. Oh, here he is. Now we can start. The last thing you cannot take away from people is public space. Why not?
Because it's public.
But Zuccotti Park was supposedly corporately owned. It wasn't a public park. They said, here we are. We're going to protest that this shameful...
Yeah, but they kicked them out because they were able to exercise their right because it's private.
They pushed
Through
them
public
around.
Space, no one can take away from it.
But then the company who owns Zuccotti Park says, they can stay there. You know, there was interesting stuff going on. What is, Caesar, what is now, even talking about psychic public space, what's our... Public space no longer exists. Parks.
It's not public.
Not public.
If someone tells you to get out, you will get out.
Jay, your dreams.
Yeah, those are mine.
Are you sure? If you've been sold Crest toothpaste and suddenly a Crest tube shows up in the middle of your dreams, have you been colonized?
Well, I was thinking a different type of dreams, like my aspirations.
Oh, those dreams.
What I wanna do.
Oh.
But in the terms, if you're talking about advertising, I was watching this documentary, Bomb It, about...
What is it called?
Bomb It.
Oh, the bomb it with the...
I thought it was like Bob It. I'm like, why were you watching
It
it?
wasn't Vomit, and it wasn't Vomit, it was Bomb It.
Okay.
It's about graffiti. So
Graffiti
they're
culture.
talking- Yeah, and they're talking about public space. What is public space, and that you walk around New York City or any big city, you walk down the street, which is supposed to be public space, and you see all of these advertisements from private companies trying to get you to buy their product. So why, if they can do that, why shouldn't we, who supposedly own public space because it's there because of our tax dollars, we should be able to decorate it? So it's much nicer to have beautiful works of street art up on the walls instead of all this nasty sexist advertising that we see everywhere.
Right.
That was one argument against the advertising that was on. So, and then another one was when they had Camel cigarettes being sold to kids, and
using
marketing.
Joe Camel as a cartoon character.
Joe Camel, the famous nose.
Smoking Joe is great.
Smoke got you to start smoking, right?
So they're saying, why not have graffiti artists decorating this? It's better than having companies like Philip Morris getting us hooked on cancerous products that they make specifically addictive so we can't get off it.
Oh my God, Tyrell! It seems like we're in the culture of pushers and junkies. Is that all it is? Is that? I mean, we hear cigarettes, we hear real estate, we hear your dreams. Am I just a pusher? As a professor, am I like a low-time pimp and pusher selling you education as if education should be something you make money from, not something you have in itself? Tyrell.
We're always in a situation where someone's going to push something on us, whether it's digital or actually in your face. When you're walking down the street, there's always going to be some bum with a flyer or a cardboard thing trying to push their poverty on you. Or it's going to be someone trying to give you a flyer in the street for a new haircut or something like that. And if you go on any social site where there's more than 3 people going to that site, you're going to have advertisements for enlargement of things that you don't need enlarged.
Exactly.
Or
Spam.
Something's always going to be pushed on you no matter where you go.
Okay, but Tyrell, let's extend the metaphor. Everyone else, it's okay. But what if it's a party? Everyone likes a pusher at a party, right? It's like, oh wow, this is a great party. I might not go home alone tonight. Oh man, what are you smoking? Okay, what. If it's a big,
that one for you?
No, never went like that for me. But do you ever leave home alone? Ever leave the party alone? Never. Oh my God, this is such a great party. Extending that metaphor, the university could be a party, right? Oh,
No.
what? You're not going to college? Oh my God. Oh, I feel sorry for you. Man, it's college is a riot. You get to leave your parents' house. You get your own dorm room. It's like it's the or the whole homeowning thing. It's I know in the Midwest where I'm from, the other people look at you like, what? It doesn't matter if you've ever been to Europe or not. It's like, what? You don't own a home? Oh, that's the craziest thing you could ever do in your life. Not own a home, right? And I said, well, I've lived in Europe. I lived in Asia for 3 or 4 years. I've lived here. I lived there. I travel 2 or 3 times a year. I've even moved every 2 or 3 times a year. I don't see the point of a home. And my Midwestern relatives are like, what's wrong with you? Oh my God. It's like, and then I ask, how many have kept your jobs for the past 2 years? And then there's silence. It's like
6 years.
you have a job 6 years? That's cool. Are you thinking of home ownership?
No, I'm thinking of quitting.
Quitting your job?
Yes.
Is it in your generation? I dig you guys, man, because you ain't like those. Look at Levittown. Levittown was for the GI, Landicraft Open, German machine guns, blah, 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 shooting straight in. The survivors got 2.5 kids, a beautiful sexist-inspired wife. They took all those women who were working in the factory, they put those sexy bodices on them and threw them back into the house and said, now you breathe. And they gave low-interest loans to all the Levittown returning war hero soldiers. That was the cookie-cutter stamp for the rest of the country. How many of you live in Levittown? How many of you have been through Levittown? No one? Is it still like that?
Well, it's just like every house is the same, but I don't know about the people that live
That was the model for America. You know Levittown? You live there?
No.
That was the model. I hope you studied that in your urban sociology.
The model for suburban.
That was America's model. Even Levittown was the model for LA. It went from coast to coast, right? Like in 46 through God, through the Eisenhower years, you all read about it, right, in your history books, and how ultimately how kind of devilish this was, because it turned a great diverse nation into conformity. We talked about the post-industrial or the industrial thing. I don't know what those guys were what job. And it's very sexist too. It's the man in the gray flannel suit. All the advances women have made working in the factories now became, you get in the house, you breed 2.5 children, 2 cars, 11 hounds. Your man's going to be in town here riding the LIRR. How many Caesar, that was an ideal for a while.
What's that, riding the LIRR?
Yeah. Into town, blah, 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 work your 8 hours, then head out and go back.
I know a lot of people that did that. I mean, back when the trains were big blue diesel ones, that people could smoke off the back. So.
There were bar cars, there were a whole lot of other things that there weren't now. Jay, was that even an ideal stretched out to the Midwest? The Levittown cookie cutter model?
Yeah, I've seen plenty of suburbs like that around Milwaukee. Like where my brother's living right now, you go to Google Maps and look down in his neighborhood, there's a whole bunch of houses that are perfect squares, just one after another for probably at least 2 or 3 miles, 2 or 3 square miles in that neighborhood.
Remy.
I was gonna say where I live in Rockaway, that's kind of like that. It's just a suburb, 2 or 3 miles.
But it's an old suburb. It's almost pre-war suburb.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Pre-World War II suburbs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that adds to sexism, adds to racism, because it was white flight, right? They were like, Robert Moses lowered the bridges on the whatever, the parkway. No buses, man. Which means urban poor folks couldn't get to the beaches. It was on purpose. It's in black and white. What? Robert Moses State Park or what? Jones Beach? That's all pretty cool out there. Okay, so we're turning around. Minju, come on. I've lived in Seoul. In Seoul, you fly into the city and it's rimmed with all of these gigantic 20-story housings built by Samsung or Hyundai. And I'm looking at these suckers. I lived in Seoul for a whole year. And I lived in an apartment maybe half the size of this. My company gave me it for free. My commute was maybe 100 feet. It was in Daejeon. I said, wow, I could live like this.
Was it a studio?
Yeah. Studio. I had a wild Italian wife at the time. 1 minute? Okay. It was bliss. And I said, why in America, why cannot people live this way in high rises like this? And some of those apartments are really decked out in Seoul. And they build them like hotcakes. Why can't Americans live this way? Should we live this way?
Like in a small area?
In rural Wisconsin and Minnesota, they should just find a bunch of land and throw up maybe 100 of those suckers. Instantly, they do this in Korea, right? They say, we need a new city on the coast here where there's been no city. Whomp. It's up with $30 billion. And we're running out of time. What's your quick answer? Can Americans live in this?
No.
Why not?
I feel like we're too, excessive.
Excessive. Okay, on that we quit. Thank you very much. Clap.